In this video, we're going to talk about SWOT analysis. What is SWOT? Find out more. My name is Olumide and I run Twin Institute. One of the things that we do there is to train people on business analysis. So if you're interested in learning more, you can head over to our website. I'll put the link in the description and you can check out our courses. We have online courses you can join from anywhere in the world. We're also an accredited center of BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, which is otherwise known as the British Computer Society. So please go over to our website and check out those courses. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about SWOT. And what is SWOT? Well, basically, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I found out that many people assume that they know exactly what to fill in when they're confronted with a SWOT analysis scenario. They assume that they understand the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities and threats. But then, as soon as they start filling those things in, they discover that it's not that straightforward. For example, what is the difference between a strength and an opportunity? What is the difference between a weakness and a threat? That is a place where many people have issues. So I am going to clarify today. You may have heard about organizational strategy, and from the business analysis perspective, there are really two key parts to it. There is what is known as internal environment. There is also what is known as the external environment. Okay, so the internal environment refers to the parts of the strategy, the parts of the organization, or the parts of the environment that the organization can control, the parts that are within the control of that organization. But the external environment refers to the things that are outside of the control of the organization. So what the organization can affect for the external environment is really how they will respond to the different things. So an organization can change its internal environment, but it cannot change its external environment. What it can do is to determine or to change its response to the factors of the external environment. And if you check on my channel, I put up a video in which I talked about organizational strategy, and I talked about frameworks with which you can determine the internal environment or understand the internal environment, and how you can also understand the external environment. Particularly, I talked about VMOST for the internal environment and PESOL for the external environment. Okay, that understanding of the internal environment and the external environment is crucial to understanding SWOT, because in reality, the strengths and weaknesses are on the left side of the grid and they represent internal environment factors. Okay, but the opportunities and the threats are on the right side, and they represent the external environment factors. That is an important point to note, and that really is what makes all the difference. So let's pick the different items of the grid one by one. S for the strengths. Basically, the strengths are the things that the organization has as its own advantages. Okay, there might be things like having great people, having the best possible management. There might be things like having great employees, having team dynamics that are excellent. There might be things like having great brand power. Okay, so for example, in Nigeria, the Toyota brand is very powerful. Toyota cars are seen as durable and, as basically as the cars that everybody should have if you want something that is going to last long and is not going to stress you out. So you would find that Toyota cars are so common in Nigeria. That is brand power. The brand is very strong. You would see some detergents like Omo. Okay, so in fact, many people in Nigeria do not know that the word for detergent is detergent. They would rather just say, please buy Omo. And they might be referring to a different product, but they would call it Omo. Omo is a strong brand. So Omo has brand power. They've been existing for a long time. They are trusted, they're tried and trusted, and so they have that brand advantage. There is another example like that. There is what is called Maggi. But in reality, Maggi is just a brand. There are other condiments just like Maggi, and many people do not even know them. Everybody just says, buy me Maggi, even though they're talking about maybe a different brand. So that is brand power. That is definitely a strength. There can also be strengths like having financial resources, having money to spend. Okay, so look at Nigeria's banks, for instance, like some of the big five. I think they're called Fugas: First Bank, UBA, GT Bank, Access Bank, and the last one is Zenith Bank. Yes. If you look at those banks, you'd see that they're playing in other industries, and they're able to use their size and the money that they have to outcompete smaller players in those industries. For example, they've ventured into insurance, they've even ventured into selling recharge cards, okay, and they can push out the smaller players because they have the power of money. So those are advantages, those are strengths, Another example of a strength is intellectual property. If you have something that is registered, maybe a registered copyright or something like that, that can be a big advantage as well. So intellectual property can be an advantage. So those are strengths. Let's move on to the next part of the grid, which is known as the weakness. Now, essentially for weaknesses, W for weaknesses, you basically look at those things that are strengths, and when you don't have them, then you have weaknesses, right? So perhaps you do not have the money to be able to perform like your competitors. That is a weakness. Perhaps you do not have the needed patents or the needed intellectual property. That is a weakness. Perhaps your brand is weak. That is a weakness. So essentially just pick the things in the strengths and look at when they are absent for your organization, then you have weaknesses. So why are we looking at weaknesses? Well, the goal is to correct the weaknesses. So the reason why you're evaluating the weaknesses of your organization is essentially so that you can do something about them. Don't feel it's not out of place to highlight the weaknesses for a company, because it is when you do so that they can be addressed. So make sure that you take a good look at the weaknesses, you point them out so that they can be worked on. Let's move on to opportunities. So opportunities, like I said earlier, those ones come from the external environment, meaning that they are factors that are brought about by the environment itself, by the external environment or the operating environment, that are bringing potential good for the organization or for the company. Okay, so things, for example, like maybe a particular government's legislation, or maybe a change in adoption of technology, or factors that are bringing about maybe a change in how people perceive a product or their reaction to a particular thing. So these factors can change the fortunes of a company.
Let me give a few examples. Look at the issue of technology. When the Obasanjo government brought in GSM, the mobile phones, when that was brought into the country, it immediately brought in a new kind of environment that also created several new opportunities. So, for example, recharge card sales became a viable business. Okay, and it was a viable business at that time because people needed to be able to load their phones. Also, the sale of mobile phones that sprang up. In fact, that became a big deal at that time. So that was an opportunity that was brought about by a new government legislation or new government initiative. Also, look at things like maybe internet access, something like right now we're trying to deploy 5G. The truth is that as soon as that is fully deployed, it's going to bring about a lot of changes because more and more people are going to use the internet for different things. And so it means that online services and online products are likely to have a lifeline from that. So another example of something like that is the COVID-19 pandemic. When the pandemic came up, one of the companies that it really helped was Zoom. Zoom, the same company that does video calls and all of that. Up until the time of the pandemic, Zoom was just one of those companies. But the pandemic catapulted them into becoming one of the world's big companies. Okay, so that change in the external environment worked in their favor and they were able to capitalize on that. But look at even companies like mine that are into educational technology. You see, before the pandemic, EdTech was not so strong. For a country like Nigeria, the adoption rates were still very low. But the pandemic helped because what it just did was it forced everybody to see EdTech as a viable possibility, and it drove adoption rates really high. So there are several factors like that can help a business. And they are not necessarily things that are instituted by the business in any way, but it doesn't mean that the business cannot benefit from them. Those are the opportunities. But you see, conversely, the way that there can be opportunities coming from the external environment, there can also be threats. In fact, many of the threats are also opportunities for other businesses. So, for example, I was talking about educational technology and I was talking about how it was an opportunity, how the pandemic brought about that opportunity or grew that opportunity for us. But you see, for a lot of schools, for a lot of traditional brick and mortar schools that did not transit as we did, it was also a threat. There are many of them that are closed down now. Why are they closed down? Because educational technology has threatened their fundamental business model and they've not been able to thrive. Okay, so the example I gave the other time about the Obasanjo government introducing GSM into Nigeria or facilitating the introduction of GSM into Nigeria, it also affected a company like Nitel. Ultimately, Nitel closed down because that business model was no longer relevant in the country. So you see, while there can be opportunities coming from the external environment, the opportunities for some can be the threats to others. And what you need to do is to be able to plot what are your opportunities and what are your threats. And why are you mentioning them in the SWOT analysis? Because it is by understanding the opportunities and the threats and, of course, the strengths and the weaknesses that you can know what to do about them. So the opportunities and threats are not factors that you control, but they are factors that, like I said earlier, you can respond to. And the main thing is to choose your response. Respond wisely so that your company can last longer. And if you're consulting for a company or for an organization, you might want to help them tailor their responses to the available opportunities, or to look at the threats and decide on how best to respond to them. So that's the SWOT analysis. If you've enjoyed that, don't forget that I have a business analysis class, or better still, we have business analysis classes at Twim Institute, and you can join them by heading over to our website and you can check out the business analysis courses. They are online courses. You can take them anywhere you are in the world. And we're also a center of the British Computer Society, so you can write BCS exams with us and you can get certified by BCS. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to activate notifications. And don't forget to watch my very next video. I hope to see you right then. Do have a lovely day.